What is up, Watch fam? I am Christian from Theo and Harris, and welcome to Rant&h. Today I'm going to be talking about the Rolex Submariner and how really it's the only watch you ever need. But before we do, quick wristwatch check. I am wearing an ultra-thin cliche yellow gold dress watch. It features this stunning like silver sunburst dial. The condition is incredible. The case has this kind of Florentine finish. This is an amazing dress watch. I mean, really top-notch stuff. Obviously manually wound and incredibly Swiss. This watch will be available along with 4 or 5 others tomorrow in the watch shop at theoandharris.com. It's a cliche, a Rolex, an Omega, a chronograph, some really just amazing stuff is hitting tomorrow. So be sure to check out theoandharris.com bright and early, I think 7 a.m. We should break down this conversation into 2 parts. Why the Rolex Submariner is a watch that is worthy enough, it's interesting enough, it's historical enough, it's significant enough to be a one-watch collection. And second, how it functions with enough versatility to actually serve a normal person's life forever. Okay, so now let's talk about the Rolex Submariner. 1953. It was introduced at the Basel World Fair. I believe the reference was 6204 or 05. It's kind of a debated issue. But both of those watches are functionally identical. Since its first production in 53, it has become one of the most recognizable and widely loved and purchased watches in the world. It came into our mainstream kind of eyesight in 63 with Dr. No, a James Bond film, where Sean Connery showed the reference 6538 on his wrist, on a NATO strap, an undersized NATO. And fast forward to today, where we know that the Submariner has become an extremely recognizable watch, a watch that is synonymous with both Rolex and watches, but now in most ways a status symbol more than a tool. But at the core of what a Submariner is a tool. And for the past nearly 70 years, the Submariner has been a tool to different levels of authenticity, possibly, but still the model is built on a foundation of the Submariner as a tool for divers, for people who get into muddy, dirty, wet diving situations, people who aren't as delicate, maybe as someone wearing a cliche ultra thin. To me, the guys who originally wore Rolex Submariners were badasses. You know, they weren't just looking for an expensive watch. They bought the Rolex Submariner because it was the diving watch. It was the watch that you needed to have your back. It was the watch that your lifestyle called for, because without it, you could be screwed. So that foundation, that history of the watch, and not just in reference numbers or in years, but culturally, is what to me makes it so interesting. Yes, there are Submariners now that are beautiful. The ceramic's up. I mean, please put a photo. But it's come a long way. But I still will make the argument that the Submariner really defines a one-watch collection. I genuinely believe that maybe, although not my preference, the Submariner is fully capable of being the only watch a particular person owns. So not only am I really interested in the culture behind the Rolex Submariner, but the history. Rolex history is very much so predicated upon the Submariner. Much of the research that has gone into studying vintage Rolexes, although yes, Daytonas and date dates and date justs and all of that, the Submariner really has been under the microscope. The watch that people have just spent not only money, but enormous amounts of time, lives dedicated to studying this particular model of watch. If you are familiar with the vintage Rolex world and the vintage Submariner world, you don't need me to tell you the differences, the small, minute differences that people have identified and studied, and the differences that cost, you know, thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars when you do find them. I mean, talk about references in different little things. Reference 5512, 5513, you have the 1680, you have the 1680O, which is then broken up into transitional reference and then later reference. You have the Bart Simpson, you have the Eagle Beat, you have pointed crown guards, you have the Mill Sub, 5513, 5517, double reference, 6200. I mean, I'm just keep going and keep going and keep going. Not so you know these references, because they're not going into them in depth right now, but to show you that not only, you know, are these watches so culturally important, but they are at the bedrock of the study of vintage Rolex, which means a ton. So my point there is, not only are these watches appreciated by the masses because of their cultural importance, but these are real watch people watches. And I feel like oftentimes people just write off the Submariner as, oh, that's that Rolex, that's that black Rolex. It's just not true. I mean, this is the watch that has been subject to some of probably the most study in the vintage watch world. And to me, that is just so incredibly interesting. You have this kind of like juxtaposition of the most cliche and the most deep watch. I mean, this same watch is almost like Jekyll and Hyde, Although it may function as a blingy statement that I'm wearing a Rolex, simultaneously it functions as an item that represents, deep and interesting and detailed history, like I said, that people have dedicated their lives to. So yes, the notion that a Rolex Submariner is a watch that you can just write off as, that's the starter watch, it's the watch everyone needs to get, is arrogant, and not to get too aggressive, but it's very arrogant and it's kind of ignorant. So yes, absolutely, it's a watch that is worthy of 100% of your wrist time. From James Bond to James Cameron, this watch represents a lifestyle. From James Bond to James Cameron, this is a watch, even more so than the Explorer, that represents exploration, that represents, pushing the boundaries and going further and getting in the mud and getting dirty. And not that I don't love the Explorer, but to me the Submariner even better just really defines that kind of, rough, still refined, and Rolex, the crown, but very durable lifestyle. So that brings me to kind of the question here, am I a one-watch guy? Could I wear any watch, the Rolex Submariner namely, forever? And the answer is no. I am a hopeless watch geek that absolutely is so passionate about collecting and learning and experiencing, not just learning in books, but experiencing the feeling and the lifestyles that go along with different watches. I love the Rolex GMT Master and the Rolex Submariner. I love them both. But there's no way I could wear either exclusively without, wearing a sweater and ultra thin Jaeger LeCoultre every once in a while. That to me is where I get so much fun. I'm endlessly interested in learning about these lifestyles that go along with these watches and how these watches earned the status of a lifestyle. In the watch world, there is so much out there to explore and to buy and to learn and to wear that I cannot speak passionately about being a one-watch guy, and I couldn't sell that to you, really. I don't recommend you pursue a one-watch lifestyle because I think that there's so much fun in exploring more, but that doesn't mean the Rolex Submariner isn't capable of being your only watch, and that's super important. If you're anything like me, it certainly would never be the only watch you'd ever want, but to me, it's undeniable that the Rolex Submariner, from barefoot in the Bahamas to a trench God knows where at war, and all the way back on Wall Street in a suit, absolutely can and will do the trick and do it very well. Thank you guys for watching Rant&h. Don't forget to check out the watch shop at theoandharris.com bright and early tomorrow.